Are we all hyper irrational? Are we all irrational in thinking that Bitcoin has to go up over the years and decades just because it used to go up in the prior years? Is this irrational? Is it irrational to draw those lines on the chart, those logarithmic regression trends, thinking, okay, when Bitcoin went just from a few cents to a few dollars to a few $100 to several $1,000s, is that irrational to then assume that Bitcoin will also go to a few $100,000? Because a lot of assets go up, right? A lot of assets go up over the long term, go up potentially very massively as well. And then when they crash down, people simply say, yeah, it was a speculative bubble, right? It was the tulip bubble. It was the .com bubble. It was whatever, the railroad bubble, the radio bubble. It was all kinds of bubbles. Are we maybe, with this whole crypto speculation, maybe with Bitcoin itself, simply just in a huge bubble that continued forming for a long time, where we then at some point in time will come down and crash again? Are we irrational in believing that Bitcoin will continue to go up forever? Here's how I think about this. I don't think that the main reason why Bitcoin continues to go up is its limited supply of 21 million. Because a lot of assets have limited supply. And a lot of assets go up also that have limited supply, but potentially not as quickly as Bitcoin does. So the limited supply is a nice feature. It's a nice feature to generate confidence in the asset. But really, what's driving the price, the long-term growing price in Bitcoin, is exactly that. It's confidence. It's not just the features, it's also branding, it's also psychology, it's confidence. And it's confidence on two levels. First of all, it's confidence by the people that already own Bitcoin. The people that dollar cost average into Bitcoin. The people that buy a bit of Bitcoin every month, that save in Bitcoin, and that rightfully, probably, believe that Bitcoin is the hardest of the monies, the hardest of the currencies. It's a widely adopted asset, globally adopted, that's very hard, that doesn't expand in supply, and so it makes sense to simply store purchasing power in Bitcoin. So there is the confidence by the existing people. And because people dollar cost average in, because over time people save and have more and more money in Bitcoin, acquire more and more Bitcoin, that's one of the main reasons why the Bitcoin price is going up, right? You don't need that many people for the Bitcoin price to go up. You simply just need a core group of believers that don't get shaken out of the market, that simply just continue dollar cost averaging in. If you've got enough people that treat Bitcoin like a religion, that allocate enough capital continuously into Bitcoin, then of course we will see continued price appreciation beyond just the money printing, right? I'm not talking about the monetary expansion, which by the way is around 6.5% per annum. US M2 expands roughly by 6.5%. I'm not talking about that, why Bitcoin price is going up, because Bitcoin's price is obviously going up way faster than this, right? So it's not just that that's driving the prices mainly. It is the confidence by a core group that treats Bitcoin close to a religion. That's only one piece of the puzzle. The second piece is that there's still continued growth in the number of investors, as in the people that strongly believe in Bitcoin might in the end also talk with their friends about it. And they might see how this strong believer is actually making money. And so then people are wondering, why is this going up? Have I been wrong all these years? Have I been too early to dismiss all this theory around cryptocurrency and Bitcoin? Should I maybe look into this a bit more deeply? Because that person that bought all those Bitcoin, they made so much money. And maybe me ignoring this was not the right choice. And maybe I should spend more money learning about Bitcoin. And then all these different features become transparent. That you've got self-custody, you've got assets that can't be taken away from you, that you've got limited supply, that you've got global adoption. All of those things then become clear. Then people learn about the monetary system. They learn about how all the money is debt. And they learn about how bonds potentially pay less in coupon payments than there is debt expansion. And they learn about all of these fancy things. And then they might also adopt Bitcoin. But of course it takes time, right? The more you learn about Bitcoin, the more you will then be also able to invest, because with more conviction, again, comes a higher capital allocation. That's on an individual level, but that's also on a societal level.
Here are the videos that work on YouTube. XRP will be $12,000 guaranteed, or an AI explosion, top 3 cryptos to buy in November. A lot of pushing of greed, that's what gets the clicks. What doesn't get the click is a tutorial on how to make backtests, on how to build those sheets that in the end figure out what historically worked well in the past. The backtest that I often show here on this channel. I still very much enjoy producing this kind of content though. I also share these kinds of sheets, but I don't do it on YouTube. You also get direct access to me. Feel free to check it out. It's thebitcoinstrategy.com.
So really what we are betting on here over the long term is that the adoption of Bitcoin as a savings vehicle will continue. That despite the high volatility, people will continue to store some, at least, of their wealth in Bitcoin. Because there's all kinds of positive properties of Bitcoin, right? There's also, just in financial metrics, the nice property of having very, very low correlation to the rest of the asset market, right? If your stocks go down, and then maybe your property goes down, and then maybe there is a huge economic crisis. And of course, bonds could go up in theory if interest rates get lowered, but also Bitcoin in theory could go up. Some people say that Bitcoin has high correlation with tech stocks. They believe that Bitcoin is just a levered Nasdaq. But when you actually run the numbers, that's not true. Bitcoin has very, very little correlation with stocks, especially tech stocks. The correlation only happens during a massive liquidity crunch. So in other words, when everything crashes down massively and people need liquidity for whatever reason, and everything sells off, then Bitcoin sells off as well. So we saw this during the Corona crash, right? Stocks, of course, went down. So did Bitcoin with a delay of roughly 1.5 weeks. But so did also gold. So did also bonds. Everything got sold off during a liquidity crunch. That is not correlation. What correlation means is, how do two assets normally run against each other, say on a 90-day time frame? If we don't look at these extreme scenarios, if we just allocate to different asset classes, how much can we reduce overall portfolio volatility by allocating to different assets? And for that, Bitcoin is a nice diversifier. So over time, more and more people will learn about this. Over time, potentially more and more people from the traditional finance world will also move over to crypto, because there is also this conflict of interest, right? When you are a fund manager, very often, at least parts of your compensation are relative to a benchmark, are relative to how much you outperform a benchmark. So let's say you run a hedge fund and you've got the S&P 500 as your benchmark. In case you outperform the S&P 500, you get a share of those profits. That's usually 20%. On the other hand, when you make losses relative to the benchmark, you don't have to pay your customers. So what that means is that fund managers in general have the incentive to take on a lot of risk. They have in general the incentive to increase portfolio volatility or fund volatility. And where can you get a lot of volatility? It's in crypto. So just because of that simple conflict of interest, you might see more and more adoption by traditional finance or by the hedge funds, etc. The hedge funds that perform the best, that make the best money, are the ones that bought crypto, that bought Bitcoin at the right time, because they are outperforming everything else massively and they make all the money. When it goes down then, right, when it crashes, they don't have to care about this, right? They already got the bonus. Buying Bitcoin is not just a bet on the monetary supply to expand and the US dollar to hyperinflate away. It's a nice protection against this, but it's not necessarily the main reason. The main reason why the price is going up is continued adoption. And that's actually quite nice. When you look at the people that don't just buy Bitcoin once on a hype, when everybody's talking about it, but when you actually look at the people that read a lot about Bitcoin, that read a book or two about it, that get informed by the right YouTube channels, when you look at those people that start actually dollar cost averaging in, that don't just buy everything on a lump sum, but they maybe set up a recurring plan to buy a bit every month. When you look at those people, you don't see many whatsoever that stop that approach. Even there's a bear market, those people tend to continue. And what that means is that once you become a Bitcoiner, you stay a Bitcoiner. And that then in turn means that more and more people get converted over time, that in the end, the asset obviously has to go up in price as well, right? The more capital flows into the asset, the better it is for the price. And that happens from the core believers. It also happens from the number of core believers expanding over time. That's the main bet. So that's why I want to look at specific metrics, for example, at the number of wallets that hold at least one Bitcoin, right? Search for this in Google. Search for Bitcoin, number of wallets with one BTC. You will find all kinds of different websites. You will find, for example, look into bitcoin.com. There's a chart over there. You can see how nicely this is going up over time. You can see how adoption is developing over time. It's a very nice steady graph. The price might be shooting up and down. It goes in cycles. It goes in attention cycles. But the long-term upwards trend is a direct consequence from the people that simply just buy more and more, and from the number of those people also growing more and more over time. And that's a very, very steady trend. If you're not yet part of our Telegram, feel free to join us. The link is down below. Feel free to also give this a like. It helps the channel grow. And see you next time. Feel free to subscribe. Cheers.